and welcome everyone to today's feature update webinar for ACC. As Lori mentioned, my name is Vince Daniele. I've been with IMAGINiT for about 15 years now, and I lead our construction solutions team. So manage a team of consultants that do all the training and implementation around the Autodesk Construction Cloud. I'm based out of Detroit here, and I guess one fun fact about me is I really enjoy golfing, and this is the perfect time of the year. I finally got to actually go outside and hit the driving range yesterday during lunch, so really excited to get back outdoors. It's been a pretty long winter, not necessarily super cold here, but definitely a long winter. With that, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. I didn't know if you were going to do your fun fact, but I'm glad that you did. Yeah, so hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name's Lisa Stine, and I'm a construction engagement engineer over at IMAGINiT. I've only been here about 7 weeks, but I'm so excited to be here. I'm coming from about 7.5 years at Autodesk, playing a lot of different roles, technical solutions executive on our construction team, a big kind of SME and account executive over on our electric utilities side on the design team, and then also did a little bit of marketing. I come from industry. I spent about 8 years as a structural engineer working in electric utilities, so super excited to be here with you guys. I'm located in Northern Colorado, and I gotta have a fun fact that trumps Vince's. So I would say that I used to be I was the lead singer in a metal cover band. In a Tool cover band, I was the lead singer. So I think that's more exciting than golf.
You got me for sure.
All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and dive in. You can go to the next slide there, Vince. All right, so today's agenda, I'm just going to do a very brief overview of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. That's the platform that we're going to be looking at the releases from today. So we'll do a brief overview. Then, of course, we're going to go through all of the releases. So Vince and I are going to kind of tag team those and share those, and then we'll go into some live Q&A. So again, as Lori mentioned, if you have questions, please just fill those in the question box, and we'll get to those at the end. Okay, so if the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform is new to you, welcome. This is a very overwhelming slide, I'll be honest, and Vince and I think both agree on that, but it is a good overview of what the platform kind of encompasses. So the Autodesk Construction Cloud's goal is to connect all 4 phases of a project lifecycle. So we're connecting design to pre-con to or plan phase, right, to build, and then to hand over a closeout. And in doing that, we're looking at a lot of different solutions that are connected. So we can see at the top, we've got those different solutions in there, BIM Collaborate, Assemble, Takeoff, ProEst, and those are really following, the order of the 4 phases of our project lifecycle. So in design, we're looking at BIM Collaborate. When we get over to planning, to pre-con, we're looking at Assemble, Takeoff, ProEst, Building Connected, Bid Board, Pipe, and then when we go into Build, we're looking at Build, right? But under all of this, you will see another platform called Docs. And the reason that that's important is that is the foundation of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So that means that no matter what phase of the project I'm working in, I'm working off of the same information as everybody else. So that foundational piece is super important. But yes, the releases that we talk about today are going to apply to specific products within this platform, and I'll let you know which ones kind of apply to which. And an update on the release cycle. So Autodesk Construction doesn't do yearly releases like other design offerings in the Autodesk platform or world do, right? We have releases every 2 months. So I believe that we're going to start doing these calls every 2 months to just let you guys know what's going on. There is a public-facing roadmap you are always free to check out. The link is there. Go ahead and screen grab that if that's of interest to you, and you can always kind of get a better understanding of what's coming. Go to the next slide and hop into our actual.
Sure. One thing I wanted to piggyback on that, Lisa, as Lisa mentioned, since these releases are coming out frequently every couple of months, when we do these and our team sets these What's New webinars up in the spring. So what Lisa and I did with this presentation is we captured what we felt were the most, I guess, the most impactful feature releases over the last year to 6 months. So that's what we're really highlighting in this presentation today. our intent in the future, if we're doing these every couple of months, is to probably give you a little bit more detail within each of those release cycles on things that have been updated. So I just wanted to mention that if you're new to our webinar series, we do these what's new for other desktop solutions in the spring. So for Revit, for AEC collection, all of the different desktop solutions that are more on that yearly release. Our plan though, moving forward for the Autodesk Construction Cloud is to do probably shorter but more frequent feature releases like this. Sorry to cut you off there, Lisa.
Oh my gosh, don't be sorry. Just fine. All right. Although you were like a ghost, you were not, didn't see your photo. Okay, so the first area that we're going to take a look at is bid management, and this is going to be in the Building Connected Pro solution. So go to the next slide here. All right, and the release here is now we have bidder list optimization enhancements. So now anyone that's using Building Connected Pro is going to have more control over their bidder list because we're able to filter better. We have different selection tools in this instance. You can remove bidders who don't work in the project area, who maybe don't offer the trades that you're looking for inside of your project or the different scopes of work that are involved in there. You also can add preferred trade partners, because maybe their service area matches the work that you're doing in, or they do, you know, maybe a niche type of work that really relates or is relevant to your type of work. So a lot of flexibility in there. So that's one that we're super excited about. Go to the next slide. All right, next we're going to go into model coordination, and this is going to be specifically for Autodesk BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro. So a lot of stuff on this slide, a lot of exciting things. The first area of interest, I guess, is look at the upper right-hand image there. You can see I've got a 1 and a 2. So point number 1 is that we now have object table integration with clash and issues. So if the object table is open, you can look at clashes, you can look at issues, you can isolate different properties from your model objects. Previously, this didn't work. It was disabled. So this is one that we're super excited for. And then I'm going to hop down to point number 2, which is clash visibility and issues. So we can also see that in the image there. Now you can view a summary of all of the clashes that are associated or tagged with a specific issue. And you can see that in a separate tab. That's helpful because now we can also temporarily hide or isolate them in the viewer. So a little more flexibility there. We've also got object table performance improvement. So the browser memory consumption has been improved. So I know I've heard feedback from many folks that I can't open my large models. That's changed now. That's a lot better. So I will be really interested and to get any kind of feedback from you guys on that, because I know that was a big one. We're also looking at level offsets. So we can now level offsets, and that's going to allow you to shift the boundary plane of the level filter up and down to control what's visible in the actual viewer. The always on mini map. So rather than just in first person mode, you can always see the mini map in the corner of your screen. That's a big helpful one. And then lastly, on this slide for model coordination, we've got spot coordinate tool for model coordination. So this is just a new measurement tool that's going to provide coordinates and elevation values when we click on different parts of the model. So we're not just doing kind of a linear measurement anymore. We can add coordinates and elevations. So that's very exciting. Go to the next slide. All right. Now we're going to take a look at quantification. This is, of course, going to apply to Autodesk Takeoff. There's a new specification tool in Autodesk Takeoff, and that is going to be consistent with the content of what folks see when they're using docs and build. So again, we're just pulling specifications from the module of build into Autodesk Takeoff or ATO. So again, more connectivity. That's really the point of this whole platform. Go to the next slide, and we're going to talk about project management. There's several pieces in here and several different solutions that this is going to be around. The first is specifications. This is going to be specific to docs and build. So the first point, actually I think the only point around specifications, is reference spec sections. So now specifications are supporting references. Exciting. We've seen that in other areas of Autodesk Build, but we're just continuing to build that out to, again, really provide that connectivity. So now we can directly link spec sections to certain other tools in Docs and Build, things like files, sheets. So that means if I have any of my sheets open, I can drop a reference, or I can attach a reference to a specific specification from my project. We can also reference RFIs, submittals, schedule plans, and assets inside of the specifications. So that's great. Go to the next section here, which is RFIs. This is obviously going to impact Autodesk Build. And so for RFIs, we now have an open for manager status at the creation of an RFI. So that is literally just a new status, right? We've seen draft, we've seen open for reviewers. Now we have open for manager. So it's now a new status option that RFI managers and administrators of the project can select when they are creating or developing an RFI. What this is going to do is allow for one team member to open an RFI, assign it to a different RFI manager in the project. So it's kind of just another way to hand it off to the right person internally. All right, next is submittals. That's also going to be affecting Autodesk Build. So now we can download all of our final response attachments inside of submittals. There is a download all attachments option that's now going to appear for you that you can see on the screen there. When you click that, all the final response attachments are going to be downloaded for you into a zip file onto your computer that then you can share with whoever you need to and store that where you need to. There's also a review API, so developers inside of your organization can use that review API to help establish a complete submittals workflow between Build and other third-party architectural software that you might be utilizing. If you have questions on who those third-party organizations are, definitely reach out to Vince and I, and we can chat. All right, now we're going to move into project management correspondence. This is going to affect Build and Autodesk BIM Collaborate. Okay, so the first one here is advanced permissions. Note that this is just in phase 1. There are, I think, in doing a little bit of digging at Autodesk, I think that there are going to be 3 phases. So there's more that's to come with this one. But admins are now going to have better control over the communication with inside of their project through a series of advanced permission enhancements. So with this initial release, we've got more advanced settings that allow for admins to designate who can create a specific type of correspondence and assign that by permission, either role, name, or company. So again, just better way to kind of maybe eliminate some noise, excessive noise that we have in our projects. All right, next is schedule. We're going to also be taking a look at Autodesk Build. So for this one, we've got an export task list to Excel. I am really excited about this one. Schedule has come a really long way from just being able to literally look at the schedule, just having more visibility to be able to add different references, different pieces of our project. And now we can export the tasks list out into an Excel file, which is going to help make documenting, sharing that information, and reporting on all of the project schedule activity way, way, way easier. So that is what I am stoked on. All right, and then we're going to go into handover. Handover is going to affect Autodesk Docs and Autodesk Build. All right, so support issues in handover. Now anyone that is working inside of the handover module can benefit from a more comprehensive entire handover package because we're adding issues as a supported data type in the handover tool. So again, that's just going to provide your owners with complete historical information of the project. All right, and with that, Vince, I think I'm handing it over to you.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add to the handover piece, if you're already familiar with the as-built exports out of ACC with Build, this is really just taking that to the next level. You can really specify and you can map which folders and data kind of go into a predefined folder structure here to create a handover package. So if you're already familiar with, or if you've used Pipe Closeout or eBinder, this is very similar in the way that it deals with gathering your files for closeout documentation and creating a nice package that you can then provide to your owner clients. Yeah, and yeah, thank you, Lisa. And with that, I'm going to, sorry if I'm looking all over the place here. I've got 3 monitors that I'm trying to manage here for this presentation. So yeah, I'm going to cover the field collaboration topics. And a lot of that, the field collaboration, is in line with Autodesk Build. So, well, or in case we're talking about issues here, that's equivalent or applies to Docs, Build, cost management. really everywhere in the ACC design collaboration, we have access to issues. So the first feature enhancement, or the big, I guess the largest feature enhancement to issues that came out within the last year is the ability to assign role-based permissions within your project template to your issues. This was a huge feature request from our customers, something that always frustrated me when I was going through configuration of our clients' project templates, is that so many things like folder permissions and like RFI types and managers and their permissions can be stored in the project template. But for some reason, for the longest time, we could not store issue permissions. Well, now we can. And very similar to those other tools where when you're developing your project template, you set those role-based permissions up, you have more control over who is actually being assigned certain issues, certain standard issues that you have created in your project templates. And obviously when a project admin or an account admin creates a new project, if you do have those issue permissions stored in the project template, they will automatically be applied to the new projects that you create. Small API thing, but there is a detail length limit. So there's still enforcement of the amount of text or characters that we can have in title, description, and location. So those will now be enforced via APIs, so we won't get errors when we're trying to create any type. Like we're dealing with this a lot on our Pulse migration tool, dealing with Procore to ACC. But if there's restrictions on, like we ran into this specifically with Procore, they have some different character, I guess, they allow certain characters that ACC does not allow in their naming convention. And when we were doing migration, that was causing some failure when we were doing migration. So they're still enforcing the character lengths, but through the APIs, we can then log those errors to know, hey, maybe this limit was too long from this other system, and that's what's causing this to create a failure when we do an exchange. Let's see, can I use my arrows? Cool. Next up are forms. So forms really is an Autodesk build feature. So a big feature enhancement to forms, and specifically via mobile, we can add permissions to certain attachments within forms. Right through the mobile app, you have those two sections, one for attachments, one for references. Say you wanted to hide, or you didn't want everyone in the project to be able to view a completed form and view those attachments. We can now apply different permissions, and the screenshot here kind of shows you what that would look like in both the web and mobile. But this does allow us to go into the form settings and control the visibility of things like the attachments that are included in the form. So, you know, typically, if someone had access to view a completed form, they'd be able to see everything. But now we can kind of guard that with permissions. I admittedly am not the civil engineering expert, but there are several feature enhancements for the civil viewing tools in the model viewer in ACC. So if you're here and you're a civil engineer, or you're working with infrastructure, these are some really nice enhancements to the model viewer, just kind of auto tagging and flagging different things from your civil 3D files, like alignment awareness will recognize, highlight, and select 3D alignment profile geometry. So just better selection tools within the large model viewer in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Station labeling, so just tagging and showing those stations within your civil 3D files in the large model viewer. Dynamic snapping, or station tracking. So I would be lying if I knew what all of this stuff meant, but you could probably read it on the screen here. These are definitely enhancements to those civil 3D DWGs. So trying to cater more towards other disciplines and not just Revit users. There have been some great enhancements in design collaboration for civil 3D and plant 3D within the last year. And I think Lisa had mentioned spot coordinates and elevation in her in one of her slides as well. All right, getting into one of my favorites here, cost management. There have been a lot of great features that have been released over the last calendar year for cost management. So we wanted to highlight the major ones, the major impactful ones. So we'll start here with budget control and contract management. So this one has been one of, if not the biggest feature release in the last few years for cost management. It's definitely up there. And this actually just got released, let's see, formally released about 3 weeks ago. The ability to integrate your e-signature platforms directly into your cost management workflows. And what I mean by that is, if you're familiar with cost management, there's a number of different document templates that we can generate directly from cost management based on DOC or XLS templates. Well, within those templates that we create, those document templates, we can now include variables for your e-signature. So when we actually process a document package and we're putting it through whatever workflow we designate in cost management, and that could apply to change orders, contracts, payment applications, you go through your normal workflow, and then when it gets to the final approval step, depending on how you set your workflows up, you'll have an option to actually send it for signature. And without getting into too much detail about this, you set up your document templates from the account library, and you activate or you basically sign into your e-signature platform. And right now it supports DocuSign, Adobe Sign, and Sign Now. Apparently Dropbox Sign is slated to come out in May. So if you're using Dropbox Sign, that'll be an option as well. But all of those different platforms from the account, you essentially link your e-signature account to your Autodesk account. And then when we go to generate those documents and push them through their approval workflows, the final step allows you to push them out through signature. That activates whatever email mechanism the e-signature platform uses. So it pushes the attached document package out for signature right through these signature platforms. And once it's signed off, depending on if you have 1, 2, 3, however many signatures are required through your typical DocuSign or e-signature, once they're complete, that will then automatically change the status of your cost, we'll call it cost items in cost management. So if you needed a change order approved, it can go through a multi-step signature process and then automatically mark the status of that change order as approved, or a contract is executed once it's completed your typical signature process. And I'll mention there, for a while, there was a time that Autodesk supported that Sign Now and had that linked. That went away, and then Autodesk did have some solutions through ACC Connect where we can integrate signatures. Now it's just included. So if you already have an e-signature subscription to DocuSign, Adobe Signature, or Sign Now, you basically have free integration to those tools. Also, and this is another big one for cost management, they've enhanced the internal budget transfer tool. So one, we've been able to do internal budget transfers on the budget for a while now, but one of the major concerns, or the negative feedback that we got from that tool for a very long time, was that when we're doing reallocation or internal budget transfers, whatever we moved on the budget side in our budget view was not able to update automatically the main contract SOVs. So if you're moving a budget item, or if you're moving dollars from one budget item to another, and those are linked to your main contract schedule of values, now with this update, we have a setting that allows us to link those two together. So basically, if we do an internal budget transfer, it will update our main contract SOV with the dollars that we're moving around. And on top of that, we can also kind of embed a workflow. So you don't have to go through the change order process in order to do an internal budget transfer. And you do have the ability, if you want a 1-2-step approval for budget transfers, you can turn those workflows on. So it's not just someone moving money around without any approval. Second to that are the contract compliance documents. So a couple of, maybe I would call them maybe minor, but very important updates. We can now put our compliance designation into our column view of our contracts. So if you're working with a lot of different subcontracts and purchase orders, any commitments on the cost side that require compliance like lien waivers or insurance, you can have that designation. So this little view here shows us in our column that we can turn on the compliance requirements. And if a subcontractor is out of compliance, say their insurance is lapsed and they need to upload a new document, you'll have that. It'll show you that they're not compliant, but there is a setting here that if we want to override, even maybe we don't have an up-to-date insurance document, but the subcontractor, we still want to pay them out, or there's something tying them up from giving you that document, you can allow the payment to that subcontractor as you're waiting on their updated insurance document. So we do have the ability to control that or open it up if we know that it's pending and we're just waiting on an update from them. We can still process their subcontractor pay-ups. Also, a lot of this stuff, I don't know that this slide necessarily says it, but a lot of the compliance requirements will link to your homepage in cost too. So as an admin, as a cost admin, if you want to see if there's anything coming up or if there are due dates approaching for compliant documents, those will show on your homepage of cost management. Cool. And then just some settings. So this one, pretty simple, but it's a tax update. So we can have inclusive tax. So we have a new tax inclusive option in our settings that allows us to put show the tax within our commitments automatically. So if we're calculating tax on commitments that we have in the cost area and we want those to display in our contract view in cost, we can automatically have that showing with the tax included right in your main view, rather than having to look in the detail and see what the calculated tax is on a commitment. And then in addition to that, there is a setting in the tax formulas now where we can set a base limit field for cap tax. So screenshot here on the bottom, the second screenshot shows that in the settings. It's simply a dot that we can designate and set that taxable base limit. Oh, one other thing, and I realized this as Lisa and I were going through this presentation earlier today, and I meant to get this into a slide. I was talking about the document templates earlier with signature requirements. With another thing that has been extremely helpful for me and my team when we're setting up these different document templates and cost management, Autodesk included a variable finder within the cost settings. So when you go into your document templates and your cost settings, you'll have the DOCs showing there. There's a little button in the top right corner that says variable finder. And again, if you're familiar with document templates, you know that there's a lot that goes into them. There's a lot of variables that you're chasing down or you're trying to figure out. In the past, I know I just would normally have the help documents open and have to really search through the different variables. Well, now with the variable finder, not only can we search for the different variables that we're looking for in a nice interface, but it will also allow us to generate examples based on contracts and change orders that have already been created in the respective project that you're testing these document templates on. So it gives you a really good preview of what the display is going to be before you actually generate a document template against a change order or against a pay app. And if we do have some time at the end of this presentation, I'd be more than happy to explain that further. That came out right around Christmas of 2024. Cool. All right, moving into document management. So files, couple of things here. With files now, we do have the ability, so the OCR technology that's built into the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you might be already familiar with that if you're familiar with publishing your sheets into the sheets area of build. But a lot of the same features, we now have access to use those within just normal files. So if you were to put a bunch of PDFs of drawings in a folder, we can now extract from the title blocks. We can extract different attributes that can tie to custom attributes within your file view. And that can also be used for your different naming convention standards. So if you're uploading a whole bunch of drawings that have been printed out and you're trying to capture things like drawing scale, title of the drawing, you can now capture that using that OCR and it will write it directly to an attribute. And also with files, we now have the ability, if you have DWGs stored within your ACC projects, instead of opening up those DWGs with the normal model viewer, the large model viewer that's built into the Autodesk Construction Cloud, that doesn't allow you to actually edit the DWG or review the attributes specifically in the DWG. Well, to some extent it does, but we now have the option to open it in the Autodesk, the AutoCAD web version, the web viewer. So instead of opening it up through the native model viewer in ACC, you now have an option to open up your DWGs directly in the AutoCAD web. And that does allow you to edit those drawings directly. When you make those changes, it just creates new versions of that document directly in the cloud. Okay. Some things here, just few slides left, but for data and intelligence across the entire platform, we have this Autodesk Assistant. So I like to call we call it Autodesk AI, but there is an Autodesk Assistant. So for those of you that are already in the Construction Cloud, you probably saw this Autodesk Assistant icon pop up within the last couple of weeks. The assistant is really meant to help you to search different information within your projects. So it's basically like a smart chatbot, but specific to your data environments. So you can use that assistant to type in queries or search for things within your project. Say, show me all of the RFIs that were created last week. It will bring open a view or link you to the RFI view that shows you everything that was created last week. So some really nice stuff there. It is still in beta, but it's promising. It seems like it works really well. And I know with anything, the more information that we're feeding into the system, the better it's going to get with the way that it searches our projects. So it does have that learning intelligence built into it. And just a few bullet points here outside of what I mentioned with the RFI example, but you can search for lists, draft summaries of emails, answer follow-up questions, save prompts, and chat history. I haven't played with this too much. I've used it for general search within my projects, and it works really well. But it's kind of like Autodesk's ACC's version of ChatGPT built directly in. All right, so for reports and dashboards, this might seem minor, but it's actually something that comes up quite often. And hopefully they'll enhance this even further in the future. Lisa might have more information on different phases of this, but for our issue detail reports, one of the gripes about our issue detail report was they were just kind of too long, and there's a lot of white space within the report, the standard report templates that we could kick out of Autodesk. And if you're aware of this already, we can't customize. There's no HTML editing where we can customize these templates. So we're kind of stuck with the formatting that Autodesk gives us. Well, they did listen to customer feedback and they've enhanced the detail summary report. So it's much more compact. You'll notice that even in this screenshot here, we're able to really condense a single issue into maybe, let's say, 1/3 of the page, even if it includes photos, your reference where it was located on the sheet. So it's a much better output than what we were getting before. So compact layout for issue details. And then we can also reference we can add references in our detail reports. So this was one thing that if we wanted to tie a reference to a detail report, we weren't able to in the past. This will give us links to those references directly in the detail report. In terms of the data connector, so the data connector, there's just a few items here. And honestly, I was asking Lisa, I'm not sure about the third one, so I'll kind of skip over that. But we can now, through data connector, we can see bridge activities. So if you are linking your projects to other projects in your internal ACC hub or even external projects outside of your ACC hub, we can now report any of the bridge activities. So it will show you when files were updated via bridge and date and timestamp that. So if you want to enhance your Power BI reports, or if you're creating Power BI reports using the data connector, you can now use that bridge activity to further enhance your dashboards and your reports. Inside of transmittals in the data connector, we can now flag if someone is a non-member. So if you're familiar with transmittals now, we are able to send a transmittal out via email to a non-project member. All that's doing for the data connector is capturing that data point and telling us if this person was actually in the project or if they were not. And then, yeah, this last one I wasn't sure. We pulled this from an Autodesk feature release, and I didn't have time to dig into this. But for RFIs, it says there are now bridge indicators. I don't know if this is maybe preparing for something in the future, but for right now, RFIs cannot be bridged. So I'm not sure exactly what that is telling us through the data connector. I'm sure it's something, maybe it's within documents that are referenced within an RFI or something like that. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure. You know, we've got these bridge activities in the screenshot over here, but it doesn't really relate specifically to RFIs. Let's see. Oh yeah, some really good stuff on the account level too. So in the when you're inviting people from the account level, there is the option to do a more advanced invite workflow. Project admin users can now use this functionality at the account level. So I'm not sure if this screenshot shows it, but if we want to, let's see. Oh, yeah, this is just referring to when we're setting someone up in the system. Initially in account admin, we would add them and we would set basically their default role, default company, and what different products they have access to. If you're familiar with how they changed that in the project environment, they kind of flipped that from the legacy interface to a new interface. That new interface is now showing at the account level. So when you add a user, you can kind of generate a big list. You can import into the field of adding your users, and then you can go through them line by line and make adjustments to them in one view rather than having to add each member individually or do it in bulk, like adding all of the PMs at once and then all of the project engineers at a different time. Assign duplicate subscriptions. So if we want to, this is one that has been weird and people file a lot of support tickets. If you're a company who has, maybe you're a later adopter to ACC, but someone on your team had already been part of a different client's Autodesk project in the cloud, a lot of times when you add that member to your account and view their subscriptions and their detail, it will show that they're taking their, say, Autodesk build was assigned to them from an external account, and it will show this as external. The only way to really remove that external, there's kind of background processes that had to happen. Well, now that's been enhanced. If you want to make sure that that person is not going to have a lapse in their entitlement based on the external management, once you own your entitlements, you can overwrite those externals and now assign the license directly to your members. So technically it's duplicate subscription, but if you're managing your own licenses and you have an account-based unlimited build, you definitely want your users to have that as their primary entitlement and not be dependent on some external company managing their permissions or their entitlements, as there is some risk there. If the external company removed their subscription and they're already active in a bunch of your own ACC projects, they might go to log in and have issues with their license because their external license was removed. So we've created this redundancy, or Autodesk created this redundancy, so now those licenses can be assigned in both places. Role set product access. This kind of relates to that top one, the advanced invite at the account level, but this allows us to set the different product access based on the role permission that's assigned to a user. So if you have, let's say, Autodesk Build has build and cost management. Well, if I have a role in my project that is like a field engineer that really has nothing to do with cost, I can assign to that field engineer just product access to build and turn off their cost management access. And then when they're added to the project, it will automatically inherit what their product access is. You can always overwrite that at the project level, but it is something that helps for managing project creation and project setup and then inviting members into the projects. Another good thing, this is just a general one to point out. This has been the same for a while, but if a member is assigned multiple roles within a project, they will receive the sum of access from those roles. So the example that I gave with a field engineer, maybe they only have access to build, but then we assign that person within the project a cost administrator role. Obviously, the cost administrator would have access to cost. Well, that person would get access to both build and cost management based on that role. One other thing before I go into this final slide. At the account level, I don't know that it says this necessarily in this slide. Within your projects, and maybe I'll open up an example as we're fielding questions here. When you go into your project creation now, you can turn off certain tools within, say, Autodesk Build. I want to say Build is one of the only ones. I'm probably missing something there, but users that were coming from other platforms were kind of used to customizing the interface of their cloud. And if you weren't using, say, the Assets tool in Autodesk Build, we've had requests that users just want to turn that tool off so it doesn't lead to any confusion within the project. Like the user saying, oh, should we be doing something with Assets here because this Assets tool is turned on? So we do have more flexibility now within the online UI that we can control at the account level for our project templates and our different projects. With that, again, just kind of close the loop on all of this. As we stated at the beginning of the presentation, we wanted to give everyone a summary of the major feature updates within this past year on the Autodesk Construction Cloud primary platform. But if you want to get more visibility and read through any of the details of the releases, this URL that we have on this slide is a great resource for you to go to find what the latest feature updates are. And again, they do come out every 2 months. So if you follow this cadence, Autodesk is very good at releasing these feature updates every 2 months. I would say within a week time frame, they usually have these things out, right on that 60-day, 2-month period. So there's a lot more that has been released in the last year than we were able to show in this webinar. But if you want to stay up to speed on the feature enhancements, bookmark that page and periodically check in. Not only is it going to tell you what's actually been released during that cycle, but there is an in progress area. So if you're wondering, when is this thing going to come out? You can look at the in progress and it'll tell you what different things the Autodesk development team is working on to enhance within the ACC. So a good example was that e-signature item was in there for a couple of months. And then one day we just saw it basically popped up in between cycles that we could start using. So really good stuff. I know that our team, we try to stay up on this stuff as well. But as Lisa mentioned earlier, we are going to plan on doing these more frequently so we can get into a little bit more of the detail around the different feature updates. All right, so I will, let's see, I'll put it on the, let me go to our final slide here just to keep this up on the screen. But with that, I think all of our planned content we've covered, and it looks like we've got some
questions for you, Vince.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start off with a real softball. I'm just kidding. I think this is a hard question. Has Revit found a way to bridge Revit links through ACC?
Whew. I am not sure. I'm more focused on the construction products, not the design side with the Revit bridge. Revit models. I know we can bridge Revit models now, and we can collaborate and do work sharing between hubs using bridge. I am not sure about the Revit links through ACC. So if it's Esther, we can reach out to the email, the Sarah email that's on the screen, and we can follow up with you on that.
All right, great. Somebody asked if we could put the roadmap link in the chat. Yes, I will do that in just a second. Anthony asked, he just noticed the ability to have a sub-location on a project the other day. He's unsure when this came out, but what is the thought process on how that can be utilized?
Hey, Anthony. I'm not, if you're talking about in project information, let's get into a little bit of, because I know forever in the actual location tools, we can have many tiers of sublocation, but I'm assuming that what you're referring to, Anthony, is it's still sharing. I'm sharing my other monitor. I'm going into a project right now, so just bear with me. I'm guessing that in the project information is what you're referring to. And I haven't seen that. I know that there are some differences between the settings on BIM 360 projects where we can have things like business units and project types potentially are different between BIM 360 and the unified platform. But let me see if I can pull up. Why isn't it coming up? All right, let's check this out. So, yeah, if you're referring to this add sublocation, this has been here for a while. I don't know why it says sublocation. Technically, at the top level in your locations, you always have to have that. The parent of the entire hierarchy will always be called project. So anytime you add a location under that, I guess technically it's sublocation. So this can really just be leveraged in a lot of different areas in ACC. If you were to create an issue, or if you want to tag an asset to a specific location on the project, this allows you to predefine your location hierarchy within your project. So I think that should answer that. And there are some cool things, like you can do imports from Excel files with the hierarchy. You can actually import your locations based on Revit models as well. So if your Revit models have rooms already predefined, you can link by importing directly from Revit and tying your room schedule into the ACC project. And then you can there's a whole lot of stuff. We could probably do a whole tech tips session. In fact, I think we have in the past, but we can do a whole session over locations.
Perfect. All right. Another question is, when adding users to ACC, can you now multi-select projects to add them to like in a mass capacity, or do you still have to add them to projects individually?
Let's see. Oh, I believe we still have to do that individually.
I think so too.
Yeah, we have. I know the purpose of this webinar isn't to pump up a bunch of IMAGINiT products, but what we've been doing with our migration and integration tool between Autodesk, like ACC projects to ACC projects, or outside CMS solutions to ACC. Very simply, we've created different ways to generate and create new projects. I'm sure if we here at IMAGINiT, our team would be able to create some type of custom tool to do that, to make that process easier. And we're always trying to kind of crowdsource ideas from our clients to make our own products better. So I will definitely take that concept to them, because I think this is one that at the account, kind of the management level of ACC, you know, there are some things like that you feel like, hey, this should be built in, but it's not. We have the acumen and the developers to be able to generate tools. So yeah, so sorry I can't give you any more information on that, Amanda, but yeah, I don't believe that we have the ability today.
All right. In the chat, I just dropped a link, more information on the handover tool. Somebody had asked for more info. So know that that's there, and also the public facing roadmap link is in there too. Another question, Vince, someone's asked about the Insight Builder. Curious what that is, what the point of that is. Is it meant to replace anything? Is it customizable? Can you do a little bit of an overview of the Insight Builder?
Yeah. I was just reading one of these questions. It's like, you can't handle the truth. I'll get back to that. But yeah, going to Insights. So if you're familiar with the way that the Insights pages work in Autodesk, they're largely based on, well, not largely, they are solely based on the data and the information that you have within your account. So in all of your different projects, when there's activity happening, you know, it's stored in the cloud. We're building a database, and from that database, Autodesk provides what we'll call like stock. And I'm in a project right now, so we have these different stock cards that we can embed into these dashboards. But there's a number of different partner dashboards, including Power BI. So if you're not familiar with Power BI, is a Microsoft product, and it allows us to create enhanced visualizations. I think I have one in here in this IMAGINiT dashboard. No, not here. Let me go to my executive insights, because I know I have some examples. So with Power BI, we can really customize the way that we're displaying our data and visualizing our data within these dashboards. But the problem with that is that it does require you to have some knowledge of Power BI and additional licenses to publish those Power BI dashboards back to ACC. Well, Autodesk, if you're not already aware, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is built on, or is the database is stored on the Amazon Web Services, so AWS. And Amazon has their own kind of version of Power BI called QuickSight. Well, just recently, Autodesk released a beta for their own dashboarding tool via QuickSight that really, I think everyone that has an Autodesk account now, this used to be a private beta, but now I believe it's a public beta. I'm almost positive there.
Yes.
But you can start to build out your visuals. I haven't played around with this too much, but it is very similar to Power BI, and I was just trying to get a count of projects that we had migrated over into our account. So I created a simple table here. Was just playing around with some of the data. But if you're already familiar with Power BI, definitely is a little bit different. There are some things that frustrated me when I was trying to just dig into this a little bit. But once I learned it, I felt like it was very intuitive. And the nice thing about the Insights Builder is we don't have to schedule data extractions. It's just tied to that data. I think it does pull it at a scheduled cadence, but I'm sure there will be updates and enhancements to this before it gets released as an alpha release or whatever you want. Maybe that's the wrong term, but a non-beta. So once it goes live, I'm sure we'll see some improvements here on permissioning and different ways we can manage the data from our projects. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. We could change our visuals and do pie charts and graphs and all that good stuff.
So thanks, Vince. All right, I think we have time for one more question. And Vince, this is kind of I think it's kind of more of like a consultant question. So I'm curious what your opinion is, and we'll see if it matches mine, which is obviously the right one. Is it better? Do you think it's better to have one building per project if you have a site where you're designing multiple buildings, or individual projects for each of those buildings, even though they're part of one project holistically?
All right. So this question comes up, and there's no one size fits all type of answer. Generally, I would say it will make the management of your projects much easier if it's a one building to one project type of scenario. We've worked with a number of clients that want to use ACC as almost a portfolio management type of solution, where you might have we'll call it let's just use the example of like a hospital campus, or even better, a college campus. So on a college campus, you have many different buildings that you're trying to manage. You can definitely create I would call a parent project, like a master project within your ACC hub that houses information, maybe just documentation, maybe could be even just like as-built documentation on existing buildings to sort of house it all in one centralized location. And then when you start doing renovation type of work or construction projects on individual buildings, then to me it makes sense. Create that as its own project, but you can bridge certain data over from call it the construction managed project back up to the parent project that you set up. So it's almost like you're aggregating multiple buildings into one area of management, but then on the very specific construction processes, it makes a lot more sense to individually manage those at the project level, because what you'll end up getting, like sheet collections, sure, it allows us to break out sheets now, so we can support multiple buildings in one project. When you get into cost management, it makes it extremely difficult to manage budgets, financials, change orders. Not that it can't be done, it definitely can be done, but it opens up a lot more room for user error. Picking the right contract, picking the right building code every time you're trying to apply a new budget or a new change order to one of 3 contracts in the project. Those types of things can be time consuming and difficult to wrap your head around. And honestly, the environment just generally works better on a one building to one project when you're doing heavy management within those.
Nailed it. You know, wouldn't change anything. I think if you had a smaller project and you just really had to have everything in there together and you weren't utilizing cost management, you know, you could build out custom issue types to be clear on what is, you know, what's associated with what building, and we could have a really in-depth folder structure, but definitely would recommend one per one. Great. Well, I think we're at the top of the hour. Vince, any closing words of wisdom?
No, it looks like there are a number of other questions in here, some redundant ones. What we'll do for the folks that are on here, if we didn't get to your questions, we'll look at these, and if it makes sense for us to do a follow-up specifically on, like I see a lot of handover questions in here, we'll work with our marketing team and we'll get some messaging out. For a while, we were doing tech tips series where monthly we just had like focus on one feature and really dig into it. We're going to plan on doing that a bit more. So we'll take the information from these questions, and I know in the past we've also released just like a general FAQ after. So if we didn't get to answering your questions here, stay tuned. I'm sure, Lori, you'll be able to blast off to everyone that attended this session like that FAQ. We'll definitely spend some time to give you guys some follow-up and some additional information on future feature sessions, or if it's just tech tips that we want to focus on.